Welcome to PCB Chat, where we talk with experts across the printed circuit design, manufacturing, and electronic supply chain fields. I'm Mike Buto, the president of the Printed Circuit Engineering Association. Joining us today is Wally Rines. Wally is the spokesperson for the ESD Alliance, part of Semiconductor Equipment and Materials International. And of course, Wally spent the majority of his career first as an executive with TI, and more famously as chief executive of Mentor Graphics. How are you doing today, Wally?
I'm doing fine, Michael.
Great. We're going to talk today about the quarterly ESD Alliance report on sales of computer-aided engineering tools, semiconductor tools, PCB and MCM design software, related IP and services, and not the least, employment. The latest results are for the first quarter 2025. The data we are sharing was released by the ESD Alliance on July 15th. Going into this quarter, we had a streak of 16 straight quarters of year-over-year PCB and MCM tool growth. Did we continue the rally, Wally?
Well, we continued the growth, 5.5% for printed circuit board and multi-chip modules, but a little unique in many ways. So, for example, the total EDA industry had a good quarter at 12.8%, but it was predominantly driven by semiconductor IP, both from our reporting companies and other companies. Most of the other areas of EDA were weaker in general. For PCB was actually behind IP and CAE, the front end tools, but 5.5%. The interesting part is it was driven by Asia Pacific, whereas the rest of the business, other than IP, was very weak in Asia Pacific.
Okay, so that is something we probably want to explore a little bit. I'm curious because if the semiconductor IP was the one that really did the best, but CAE is the largest, correct?
Out of the total business, the CAE part is about 7 billion annualized. Out of a $20 billion business. So the PCB is 1.7 billion in the last 4 quarters, so smaller. The physical design and verification is 3 billion, and the IP, surprisingly bigger than you would think, is 7 billion. So it's actually right up there at the top with CAE, and that's really because it's grown so fast in the last 10 years.
Got it. So now for the fourth quarter of 2024, the preceding quarter, every region except for Europe and Middle East was up double digits. And as you just mentioned, it looked like a lot of the strength was in Asia Pacific, at least in particular categories this time around.
Yeah. So if we talk the total, what's been going on in the last couple of years, Asia Pacific has weakened for tools, remained okay, but weaker for IP, and that's mostly China. China in this quarter, China total was EDA tools were down 14%, and in total 10.7% for total China. IP was modestly positive, about 1%. The rest of Asia Pacific, if I go back last quarter, as you said, very strong across the board, double digits in everything except IP, and really strong for PCB, almost 16% worldwide. So the world's shifting around. Asia Pacific, except for PCB, is getting weaker, and especially China, and the rest of the world, sort of holding up somewhat. North America, 7%. For the total license and maintenance, and total EDA 14%. So pretty strong for North America. The rest of the world, Europe a little less, Japan about the same, and so for total EDA 11.6% and worldwide 12.8%. But remember, that includes very, very strong IP. So IP together, the total semiconductor IP grew 30% year on year. That's a big growth.
Yeah, it is. Now, there's always the 4 quarters moving average, which is, I like this data point because number one, not a lot of organizations use it, but what it does is it compares the most recent 4 quarters to the preceding 4 quarters. How did PCB look in that respect?
It's down. The 4 quarter moving average is 8.9%, and the current or first quarter numbers are 5.5%. So there's been some slowdown.
Mhm.
And unlike most of the others, it's not because of Asia Pacific, which grew 17%. It's because of fairly weak growth in North America and Europe.
Got it. Now, before we get too upset though, I mean, 5.5% year-over-year growth for a particular quarter, that's if we knew that if we could book that year in and year out, we'd probably be pretty happy, right?
I would be, yes.
Yeah.
That's really good. PCB used to be the mature business that didn't grow much at all, 1 or 2%. Now it's a consistent grower. It's been great to have it growing in double digits, but even in mid-single digits, that's healthy. That's given some of the still weakness in a lot of the world economy that uses printed circuit boards, automotive, and things like that. I think. That's a very encouraging number.
Again, looking back a little ways, we saw employment take a little step back sequentially in the fourth quarter. How did it do in the most recent period?
They increased 4.5% employed in EDA. That's actually 4.5% versus the first quarter. Overall, the growth year to year was 2.5%, but still growth. So we're hiring more people to develop and support EDA around the world.
Okay, so 4.5% growth sequentially and 2+% growth year over year.
Yes.
Do you think that the US government's recent lifting of the ban on sales of certain IC tools to China, with that, do you think we'll see a rapid shift in buying patterns, or do you think that had any impact on the previous quarter, or too early to tell?
Very hard to tell. I think it was a scary thing for a lot of the world, thinking that they were going to have to accelerate their move to alternative tools or alternative channels of distribution, or relax the crackdown on privacy that's been around the last 20 years. But whatever it was, it went away quickly, but still people pay attention to that kind of thing because they realize that it could come back as easily as it went away. And so it's probably not going to do the industry any good, but probably was of short enough duration that actual movement didn't occur very much.
Does ESDA have an official position on tariffs at all?
They do
Do you
not.
know?
We have looked for their official comments, and all they have said is that they were evaluating it. And then we heard the announcement that the threat of a total ban was now off the table.
Anything else in particular jump out at you this quarter?
Well, the if I go into the pieces of the PCB business and look at what was strong and what wasn't, it actually is not that different from usual. We PCB analysis is almost always strong, and it was again this time 14% growth. The other things grew except for package design, and that's one I don't pay a lot of attention to because so many companies report their package design revenue in different places. A lot of them
Hmm.
report it with their PCB layout rather than package design, and it's true in many cases the tools for PCB layout are similar to or even the same as the ones for package design. But library management was strong at 21%. That's a good infrastructure indicator. And the other category was weak. So that all added up to the 5.5%. The other thing we could talk about is say, well, okay, what about Asia Pacific? Why was it strong for PCB and not for other areas? And we don't get a very good indicator, but we do know that the software sales year to year in China down substantially. Overall, the EDA was down 13% in China, about flat in India, In Korea, very good growth, 23%. And in Taiwan, basically flat. And the rest of the Asia Pacific was down somewhat. So it's sort of country specific. In recent quarters, there had been a lot of new use in India. Didn't see that this quarter, but things can fluctuate quarter to quarter. First quarter is frequently weak for countries or for companies that report their revenue on an upfront basis, like Siemens,
Mhm.
for example. And so hard to tell in any given quarter what the broader trend is. Overall message, I think, is that EDA continues to be a strong basis for the U.S. electronics industry. We still have the vast majority of worldwide market share. And while countries like China are rapidly starting companies and developing software, it's still predominantly a U.S. based business.
Okay, well, those are all positives, especially for listeners in North America and in the U.S. Well, thank you, Wally. I hope you have a great summer, and we always appreciate you coming on and sharing the ESDA data and especially your own analysis.
Thanks very much, Michael. It's always good to talk, and we'll see you next quarter.
Okay, take care.